Grand Rising Life Force, and welcome to Speak Pro Radio. My name is Stefan Rao, more commonly known as Tank, and this is the Life Force Network. So, you may not have heard of Life Force, and if you haven't, Life Force is a movement of like minded people dedicated to changing the world. This whole idea is that we're gathering people from the four corners of the earth so that we can work together to create the world that we've always dreamt about living in together. And we're going to talk today. We've been breaking down the world situation reports from Kimberly Ann Gogan at UnitedNetwork.Earth. And this latest report is once again mind-blowing. So if you haven't, bought in or, got onto United Network, I highly recommend it. It is, we're going to break down some of these things. However, I have to be honest, there is kind of a next level communication that Kim Gogan is working with. She speaks a lot to the deep state, right? She's talking to them to really try to, as the remnants that are left over, because the deep state is no longer the perennial force it once was that had absolute control of everything in the world, right? They were assisted by beings that were not human. And because of this, they thought they were special. And because they thought they were special, they thought they had the right to rule over all of us. But now, this hierarchy has been ultimately eliminated from the planet. They're not really here anymore. And Kim talks about these things, and they're kind of mind blowing. We actually have some slides that we're going to be throwing up here at some point to talk about this more in depth. But we were so overwhelmed by everything that was shared on the latest World Situation Report that we're actually we were creating slides and trying to really catch up to make sure that we even have the really full understanding on how to talk about these things, which I'll be perfectly honest, we do not. Right? I have a working understanding of these things, so I'm going to talk about them anyways. And worst case scenario, you'll go check out Kim Gogan to validate or confirm or deny basically what I'm talking about. So some of the things that we're going to talk about up front that you may have heard of are the Artemis Accords, right? So this, I had no idea. Actually, I've heard of something called the Red Queen, which is the anti-Palladian. People often talk about the Palladians, right? But the anti-Palladian queen, right? Known as a Red Queen. From my understanding, she actually had red skin. And she was here until recently, and her and Kim would often kind of bang heads because the Red Queen had some kind of absolute control ultimately of the planet. And there was this Artemis agreement with the Red Queen that expired finally on July 5th. Now, that's pretty mind-blowing all by itself. But the part that really blew my mind is you'll often hear in alternative circles, right, with people that are spiritual and they're connecting to things. And well, you often hear people talk about accessing the Akashic records. Okay. Now, the Akashic records up until yesterday, what I always thought was the Akashic records were the ultimate record of everything that has ever happened to every person, and that you could personally, spiritually somehow access, through meditation or just connecting with your higher self or with your eternal self, I'll say, right? Because we are, life is eternal. All life is eternal. Life never ceases to exist. It is energy, and it just changes shape and form. So one of the anomalies that takes place or has taken place previously here on Earth is that we were all used as batteries to basically fuel the multiverse, right? And this was done through various thousands and thousands of different agreements and accords and covenants that basically enslaved us. And so we would basically be reborn into this body, and everything that we had experienced in our previous lifetime would be completely wiped out. Matter of fact, all of our previous lifetimes would be completely wiped out. And the reason why this was done is, well, there's a lot of reasons there, but there's something to do with the progenitors. The light progenitors were there was a virus that wiped them out, however many hundreds of thousands of years ago, And because of that, you had a limited number of light souls that basically had to be maintained and kept and rejuvenated, right? So our lifespans were over and over again, repeated over and over again here on this planet. So, and what would happen is they would limit our lifespan, right? Because remember, life's eternal, but they would limit our lifespan, let's say, or our existence in this meat suit, this body that we live in, or whatever body it is that we lived in. They would limit this, and they would basically do that by poisoning us through our food, our water, our air, our minds. They would lie to us about our history, our past, our abilities, our future, and they would constantly be feeding us this dark energy until ultimately they kind of controlled like 79% of the world was dark, and we've been existing all of our lifetime and many generations before in a dark age, right? So because we've existed in this dark age, darkness has been the ruler of this planet, right? Which you probably heard in the Bible, right? The devil was the king of the world. Satan was the king of this world. And so darkness reigned. So anyways, these are kind of the mind-blowing things, the mind-blowing mysteries, right? So that Kim was talking about. So she talks about the Akashic records. Now, I don't remember what she used an acronym, right? And hopefully Laura will suddenly bring me that acronym at any moment, which would be perfect timing. But so don't worry about it though. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. I'm sure somebody out there has this acronym. But basically, the Akashic records are not good, and because the reason why they're not good is they were not accurate, right? So the Akashic records were made up of light, dark, and neutral energy, and they could be manipulated at any time, and we could have memories that are not really accurate from previous lifetimes and even this lifetime, I suppose, right? And these Akashic records were completely manipulated to manipulate our present and basically the energy that we're producing and everything about us, right? So imagine now, so the Akashic records actually stood for, it actually refers back to the Red Queen, right? Who is Artemis. So the first letter in the Akashic records is Artemis. The second one, the K, has to do with karma, right? And basically, and then there's a whole thing like, bunch of letters integrated, blah, 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 right? And in the collective, right? So it's this collective record of basically false information that's been manipulated to manipulate. I mean, so it's bad enough that we see the history here on our planet is manipulated. We can see that. But even the soul signature of our lifespans throughout eternity have been completely perverted and manipulated so that even if we were to access something higher spiritually, this is what we would basically be accessing these falsified records. And this is what you have with where people talk about karma, and we'll often talk about a karmic debt, right? So everything on the dark side is a debt system. Are you ready to go?
No, I'm here. Sorry, but you're having a little bit of interference. So that's all. And I've been trying to upload, and I've uploaded it, but it just won't show. So,
all right, that means we're onto something. It's always a good sign
try?
when they're interfering with the signal you're putting out, right? So anyway, so the Artemis was the Red Queen, and then the Akashic records are the Artemis karmic something 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 collective. I think is the C. Right? We'll get that for you by the next show.
Hang on a second. Like I have it in front of me. I'm trying to see.
Perfect. Could you
No,
read
we
it for
have
me?
it. That's what I'm trying to say to you is that we have it on here. I'm trying to show it, and it won't show.
We'll just read it out loud so people can hear it.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
We can do it that way.
How about we just sit here and wait for a little bit? Okay. So.
Just wait.
There we go.
So, there you go. Can you see it?
I can see. You want to put it up? Oh, go back.
Go back.
Yeah, to the last slide. Isn't that what we were looking for? Oh no, I thought you had it the actual. All right, so This isn't exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the action. The AR, I'll go to the next one.
So there's a few. I haven't been able to get down to doing it all. So this is what I had done now.
So, all right. Needless to
And
say,
yeah,
this has been a lot of cool stuff that we're talking about. We'll throw this up here in a second. Leave that up so I can kind of see what you're scrolling through, and then
oh,
I'll pull it up as we need it.
okay. The only thing is, continue. I'll be back.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so Artemis is the Red Queen, right? So Kim talked about how they were the owners of Earth, right? So I guess this is, I'm not sure if this is 250,000 years ago or what it was, but she talked about the owners of Earth and basically the owners of our life force, our souls, our energy. And they use this constantly to regenerate and serve their own purposes, right? So the names that she mentioned are Enlil, or sorry, she said Enki. And the first time she mentioned it, she didn't mention Enlil, but I think Enlil's included actually. But it's Enki, Enlil, Marduk, Lucifer, right? Anti-Source. I think the Abrasics are in there. And basically the Red Queen, who is Artemis, right? These were like the owners of the earth. Now, they all had covenants and agreements, right? Like Enki, like anybody out there who understands like how the birth certificates work, right? And they say they're incorporated. Well, that's Enki corpus, right? The body of Enki, right? So he owned and controlled the flow of energy. Like Marduk and Enlil, they were able to control the current sea. In other words, the sea of souls, they were able to control the flow of energy and where energy would go up or down or who it would go to, including currency, right? Including money. Money is energy. So, anyways, that by itself is pretty amazing when you think about like, okay, well, the planet was owned by this group, right? So now you have Kim Gogan, who got basically dethroned all of these people by birthright because there was, she represents the original human that this planet, she's 99.8% bioidentical to the mitochondrial Eve. And she represents that, the basic human rights to this planet, the actual right to be responsible for what the planet is and what it will become, right? And really the ultimate future. And there's actually supposed to be 5 original tribes, right? And I talked to him about this once. She talked about there's 5 warriors, right? Now it's supposed to be the 5 leaders of these different groups who had the most original DNA. And then there's the 5th element, and then there's one warrior, right? And they're supposed to rise together. And then when all these things happen, we're supposed to restore the planet. I'm butchering that, so please, there's actually a whole book written on this stuff, but my knowledge is limited on it. But I've heard Kim talk about it enough to be like, it's fascinating stuff. But anyway, so she has nothing to do with these bloodlines. However, when she took her position fully in 2012, she didn't know much about all this, right? She's learned all this over the past 12 years or so. So she didn't know much about all this. So when she met Marduk and Enlil and Enki, and I think she met Artemis as well and various others, right? And basically these different groups, she thought they were her bosses, basically, right? And so when she took the position as the trustee, I believe at the time, right, and which has ultimately led to her being the guardian, right, and the guardian of the assets and the people and the everything that has to do with this planet. That's her role. And so in 2012, she was basically told to move money out of the system, right? And so that means the off ledger system, or the at the time it was the Mana World Holding Trust, I think she named it. It was also known as the unknown country. It's actually referenced in a lot of historical documents, right? Because this is the kind of ultimate, country that every other country was kind of underneath. So, anyways, she moved money in the beginning to like fund militaries and agencies and things like that because she didn't know. She thought they were all, good, working towards the good of things, right? And they basically sold to the military and everyone else, like, oh, look at all these great programs we're going to do, right? This is where the white hats were born and all this stuff, right? We're going to take all this money and we're going to look at these great programs, all the things we're going to do for veterans and we're going to do for, humanitarian projects and the environment and all this stuff. And they sold this bill of goods, but ultimately they would have had absolute control of every aspect of your life. And if you were not a contributing member in the way that they deemed worthy, then they could have just cut you off from anything. So their ultimate goal, it was always to basically absolutely destroy humanity. And what Kim talked about, which was really fascinating, and this is to the entire, deep state remnant that's still trying to do these idiotic things. All of you were just like us. You're not more exceptional than us. You just had more information. You were a slave just like us, and you were not going to be a beneficiary of these things. You would have been killed off just like all of us. And so what the belief was the way they think is this is what has to happen to preserve humanity because humanity is the disease of the world, right? Which is really not true. It's these other groups are the sickness in the world. They've fed us lies and nonstop poisoned us in so many different ways. And they've banked on things that were absolutely ridiculous. Okay. So if you just consider for a second, this is how ridiculous this is. You have a currency revaluation that would, in fact, if this was honored, and there's been many trustees and signatories who tried to do this and Chinese elders and various groups that are legendary in the alt media. And they have tried to revalue the currency because they thought they're going to bring something in and they'll have all this control, right? And you got to think if you hold a currency, now the way a revaluation works, right? And this has happened, there is a precedence for this, right? This did happen in Kuwait in like 1994 or so, right? That's why Bill Clinton was such a great president, right? The Clintons and the Bushes went up to a big bank in Chicago. They bought all this Kuwaiti currency. Then the currency in Kuwait went from like $1,000 to 1,000. It was like 1,000 Kuwaiti dollars to $1 US. So you could buy like 1,000,000 Kuwaiti dollars for like $1,000. So imagine if you spent $100,000, right? You would, and suddenly the currency in Kuwait matched 1-to-1 for the US dollar. What would happen? Well, you'd have $100 million, right? So for every dollar you spent, you'd have $1,000,000 US dollars now, right? And that's why Bill Clinton was such a rock star of a president, why everything thrived, because they went through and basically bought up this currency, it revalued. So there is a precedence for this happening. So what happened was Iraq has currency that's about 1,000. It's like 1,000 dinar to $1 US, right? And Vietnamese dong, and Zimbabwe, and I believe Iran has a currency that's dramatically undervalued. All these war-torn countries, basically, right, that are just demolished. They have very low-valued currency, lots of resources, and this is done not on anything logical. This is just done based on Rothschild control. The dragon families just kind of say, you're worth this, you're worth this. And if you make someone's currency basically useless, it's very hard for them to thrive in all ways. Okay. So anyways, so this revaluation, this idea of the revaluation has a precedence in fact of like, oh, this could happen. And what they sold to people was they sold the idea that all the currency was going to revalue. You weren't supposed to know about it. Wink, wink. Now you're in on the know. You have this currency. So anybody who was kind of clicked in bought some currency, right? I used to be a voice for this. I thought it was real. And Kim actually contacted me and told me, do you know what would happen? Well, what would happen is the US dollar, if you would have revalued all these currencies, the US dollar would have dropped down to fractions of pennies on the dollar. So the US dollar would have collapsed overnight. And what would have happened if the US dollar collapsed overnight? Well, you would have had the global economy and the 147 countries that are pegged to the dollar would have all collapsed at the same time. So the global economy would have collapsed everywhere all at the same time. So This was used as a really horrifying weapon, right? Because people who wanted to change the world bought up currency and then they waited. And so they were doing things, but instead they were waiting and waiting and waiting. And they played this game called the Tomorrow Game. It's actually a CIA, I think it's CIA, it's an agency game called the Tomorrow Game. Not even a game, it's an operation. And what you do is for people who just bought currency, if you tell them, well, tomorrow it'll come. Well, I just bought currency, I'll wait till tomorrow. And the longer you're in it, your thought is, well, it's going to be next week. Well, it's going to be tomorrow. Well, I've already put in 2 years. I don't mind waiting another day. And then at year 10, and you just keep doing this to people, it's a psychological mind F, right? To basically constantly be waiting for something to happen that never comes. And it's actually referred to in the Bible. It's actually in the Bible. There's a scripture that says, hope deferred maketh the heart sick. So when people are filled with hope, they'll affectionately or jokingly or mock people by calling it hopium, right? Like opium, but hopium. You're filled up with a hope it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It doesn't. And then you literally make yourself sick about this because you think it's real and you're waiting for it to happen and it never does. So they took out all your real players. You took out all these people. That's why you got all these veterans who bought up tons of currency who are waiting for this to happen, and they saw it with their own eyes. They even know people. I know people who have cashed out on the Iraqi dinar, for 1-to-1 for the U.S. dollar, who had a few million Iraqi dinar and they made a few $1,000,000. I know people who actually did that, but they're few and far between, and they just did that so that there'd be legends and stories. Because you have a couple people cash out, and what happens? Well, these people become a voice box, and they say, "I know it's real. It happened to me." Right? And when someone has a real experience, you can bank on it being real. Well, that's how a psychological operation works, because you think it's real because you know somebody it happened to, right? And then they're sharing their experience with it. So, anyways, this is one of the programs. This I didn't give birth to, but now this leads into all of the other groups, including the White Hats. So the White Hats have been, is supposed to be this group of military and ex-military guys who saw the issues in the government and they were going to restore the republic, right, and take out the cabal. And so a lot of people, when they refer to the White Hats, now I worked directly with the White Hats for years, right? So I got a lot of information. Operations would be going on, and I would literally be reporting and talking about it as it was happening. So I know the White Hats are real, and I know a lot of them are really good guys trying to do good things. But on the higher levels, they have been deceived and led down a path. So what happens? If the hierarchy is getting bad information, well, what do you think you're getting? Bad information. So everybody on the ground has been getting all this bad information the whole way up the food chain. So what Kim Gogan is doing is she is ironing out the wrinkles and telling you the truth. And it is completely opposite to everything that everyone else is talking about. So the reason why it's hard for people to grasp onto it is because it doesn't. What do you mean that's true? Like, it can't possibly be true. But I'm telling you, as someone like you, who I've been on both sides of this, right? I have been very much a voice for the currency revaluation, for the White Hats, for this global change, and all these, for Nasara, Jassara. I have seen the documents. I've gotten proof. I've spoken to Chinese elders and all types of people in treasuries and governments and military. And they all believe it's true. So I can't say that they're all definitely not all bad people. Some of them were, but they're not all bad people. But the reality is the force behind it was manipulating everything that we saw and thought to be real, and no one is exempt from this. So the entire order, the hierarchy of the cabal, of the deep states, of the White Hats, even, and all these different, fraternal organizations, secret societies, you have all been deceived. And the biggest deception is that you are special. You are the chosen. You are different than everyone else because you deserve this, right? And when you get to be really, even remotely exceptional, they'll really gas you up, right? And they'll tell you, "Did you know? that you are the Archangel Michael or you are John. I'm telling you, I know this. I've been told this myself. Right? People trying to gas me up, get in my head with things, and try to get me to do things or move me. I've been recruited by all types of organizations over the years, and they try to gas you up and tell you how exceptional you're. You're better than everybody else. You deserve to lead. You need to do this. If you don't control it, who will? Right? And then that's why you have these people come out and they're like, "I'm this, I'm that," and they think they're exceptional because they had a conversation with somebody like high up in intelligence or high up in the military, or even somebody in the covens, one of the parents, or Marduk, or Enlil, or Enki. And Kim talks about that. Now, here is the tragedy that we're dealing with. Can we show this picture now?
Whenever you're ready, it's right there.
Throw that picture up there. Let's see. So this came up the other day. This is Angel Ferdinand Marcos, right? Secretary General and Ambassador of Peace for the United Nations. Now, I forget what I think it's the International Monetary or International Currency Control or something like that fund. It's some aspect of the United Nations, right? And this guy, Kim dealt with back in like 2012, right? And he claimed he's not really a Marcos, okay? Because Ferdinand Marcos was the Pindar, right? The Pindar is the head of the order of the dragon families. Okay, so he basically tried to impose or tried to bring in this new currency and brought in this something set up with Marduk, right? So Marduk basically gave this extension to them, even though Kim was in control. He gave them a 12-year extension or 10-year extension, which he didn't have the right or the power to do at the time because Kim had stepped into her position, right? And once she had stepped into her position, he was out, right? But he continued to manipulate and move things and sabotage things everywhere. So I'm not getting this exactly right, but basically this guy right here who was in jail for financial fraud in like 2012 to whenever, right? He set up something with the international whatever. It's not the International Monetary Fund, but it's something like a currency control United Nations something, right? But anyways, he set up something where he basically told he had all these offline. And that when there's offline trades, that basically means there's things trading behind the scenes that aren't actually registering as assets or real funds. It's not real. It's offline platforms, right? Some of these were real in times past of like bullet trade platforms. These are off ledger accounts, right? Now off ledger accounts are real. This is money that is kept off the ledger. This is to prevent the explosion and devaluation.
Ooh, sorry.
Hey, okay, that's okay.
I was trying to share another photo.
That's okay.
Hi everyone. I don't know what's going on here. All our things are playing up. Even our background just changed. So I do apologize. So I'm going to try to get that back up. And
you're fine. You're fine. I'll just talk through it. Stay here. You're much better to look at than that guy.
There is something that you were just talking about that I think is really important. But the problem is I need to share it so then I can go through it. It's not going to look good, but it's the best I've got right now because they're playing up with everything.
All right. So basically, the dreams described by the White Hats, by the currency revaluation group, by the what is it called? The GCR, the Global Currency Reset, right? All these different things was in large part based around this guy and this alleged brand new currency that he authorized to come in. But so they've traded all this stuff in the background on these offline accounts, and they're just waiting for what? They're waiting for allocation numbers, right? Well, allocation numbers come exclusively from the currency comptroller, I think is one of the positions, which is Kim Gogan, right? There is absolutely no question. In fact, what this is based on, so here's the document, right, that he used to do this. Now, he did this and he basically took credit for what Kim Gogan did in 2012. In 2012, when she first took the office, right? So you got to think all this was new. She didn't know any of this. It was all brand new. So imagine, like, you come in, you think that you're going to take a position to change the world, and you want to help people. Like, what an amazing opportunity, right? Next thing, but it's taken her 12 years to kind of sift through all the madness and chaos of these evil creatures and how they were basically trying to take her out. They were trying to take her abilities, her birthright, right? Which she accesses the system. There's an actual quantum mapping system that is connected to everything. The alpha system is what it was called. Now it's been transitioned over to the light system that only she can access with her DNA, right? Only she can control it. So they couldn't get around using her. They were trying to manipulate her. They've tried to clone her. They've tried to make they've taken her essence and made little versions, like birthed brand new little people that are all Kims, right? Little girls. Like
Mm.
it's like that's a real thing, right? Now, this guy, when Kim brought in money in 2012, right, to fund the order, and she explains this, and I am gonna get this wrong, but I'm gonna get this right. Okay, she brought in currency, and the way the currency would work, I'm telling you, it's nothing like anything any of them thought. So they all thought they knew what they were talking about. They all thought they knew how it worked because, like 3 years ago, Kim did 4 years ago even, Kim did a video explaining how the global financial system works. Then she did a part two to that, right? And I think that was a slide for that too. Yeah, do you have that thing that looks like the Star of David?
The star?
It looks like the Star of David. It's the numbers, says quantum financial system on it.
Yeah.
Quantum physics. If you can, don't worry about it. If you can, don't worry about it. But anyways, so this document, right? So to the entire deep state, you have been weighed and found wanting. You do not even know how anything works. You have had the opportunity to do the right thing with the right information that has been publicly broadcast to the entire world over and over and over again. And instead, you went with this deceptive guy from behind the scenes with no credibility who claims to be a Marcos, who isn't even a Marcos. And the only thing that made Ferdinand Marcos special was that Marduk or one of these other entities actually inhabited him to make him the Pindar. Okay. And, according to public record, he died in the 80s. But in reality, he was right. I actually have a photograph of a check written by Ferdinand Marcos in 2015, I think it was, to a hospital in China for like $500 million. So he was still writing checks that is blank cash, right? And so he was alive, for the real Ferdinand Marcos. And this alleged son, you have bet, all of you, the dragon families, the order, you guys have access to all this incredible technology, information, and you bet on this ridiculous idea that he was going to bring in currency. That's what you've based all of our fate on, that you would have enough access and resources to overcome aliens and forces, and that you are preferred, but you don't know how any of it works. I mean, it is a tragedy that anyone is looking to you as leaders. The tragedy is how deceptive, how useless this is. It is time to abandon ship, wake up, and actually do something to help the world. Like surrender or cooperate. I'm not even sure what exactly Kim Gogan is looking for from them anymore. To the best of my knowledge, they bring no value. They bring absolutely no value because they're even when they tell you they're going to do something, they'll turn around and stab you in the back about something else. So these characters serve absolutely zero purpose at this point. So you can have a complete reformation and there's value that you can bring and you can contribute in a meaningful way, but you are going to have to let go of everything you think you know. Now, here's the good news. All of us are in that state on some level, right? All of us are in a position where we kind of have to let go of whatever we thought we knew, right?
Yeah.
We have to let go of that on some level because nothing works the way we thought. Nothing is exactly what we thought. Nothing. So if you thought it, you can almost bank on it was probably wrong. The reality, and I'm not saying the core of who you are is wrong. I'm talking about the way the world works is just not what any of us thought. Now that is the reality that, I really, I ask myself every day, how do you communicate that to the entire world? Now that's mind blowing when you think about it, right? Now, we could talk more about that, but I'll just throw that out there for now. But let me just take a step back. So the Akashic Records, this was bomb, what Kim said. This is so good. She just said, it's funny because I've always appreciated this about Kim. Kim would just drop things like, you know, and now you can fly. Anyways, it's like, wait, I can fly? I know I'm hung up on that one. But anyways, so she said this though. She said, now the Akashic Records, this was based on the Artemis Accord, not the Artemis Accords, but based on Artemis, the Red Queen. This was a control system she had in place to manage, humans' lifespans, memories, our experiences, our expectations for life, what we knew about ourselves. And let's be honest, what could we possibly do if we couldn't remember anything about who we are, right? And what Kim said is now the real memories, the real substantive memories from our whole life, not just in this body, but our whole life experience extending throughout all time, that we are immortal and we've had many lifetimes, many experiences that we have no access to. And what we all thought was, well, I could access the Akashic Records, but they were falsified records. They're not accurate. But now our real memories will start to flood in, right? And we will start to know fully who we are. Because knowing where you've been, where you come from, right? I mean, this is like a pretty common thing. We're like, don't forget where you're from. Well, that's what happened to us. We all forgot where we're from, right? We have no recollection of all these things because every time we would come back in as a baby, at some point we would just have our whole previous experience wiped out. So you can imagine that if you don't know where you're from, it's really hard to know where you're going because you don't know what to expect. You don't know what's possible. And just by changing your expectations about who you are changes everything, right? Changes everything. So can you help me talk about that a little bit while I take a sip of drink?
I'm here. So
okay.
I do apologize. It's just they've been playing up on my end. No matter what I touch, doesn't work. No matter what I do, and then they'll just like skip things. So I do apologize. So, sweetie, I've been trying to put myself in and I can't.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to help me on that end.
I see. Yeah. Let's take this off. There you go. And let's change this over to this. There we go.
There we go.
Boom.
Sorry, fixed. I couldn't put myself in.
It's okay.
So hi everyone. So I'm so sorry. There's a lot of glitches happening on my end. But yeah. So what were you saying?
I was talking about this. What do you think the value is, or how do you think this will change humanity if we're actually going to start to? And I'm not sure what it'll look like, but what does it look like to start having our memories of our real life or our whole life? And I mean the life that extends beyond this body and past.
I don't think it's anything to be scared of because I think it's something that's supposed to happen. So then we know what we're supposed to do. I think it's just like missing pieces. Like they've been taking pieces out of our memories, and then once it comes back, I just think you'll just know what you have to do. Like you probably would just be working there, and then suddenly you're like, I need to quit my job, I need to start a news network, I need to do this, I need to do that, because everything just fall into place. That's just what I think. I think it's really cool because, like, with my memory and how I've had a lot of things happen with me, I've had to learn to adapt with it and not be scared of it every time. So I guess that's where I kind of understand a little bit about that.
Okay. So what does that world look like? I mean, when people, I mean, do you think, because the way Kim described it, I really thought this was really kind of amazing, and she says it's just like, it was a great question by Sunny to say, what does that look like? Because a lot of people have tried to access Akashic records. And I've talked to a lot of people who will come back and they'll tell me, like, I was a whatever Chen Hao Fat from the Zheng dynasty, and so I am this, right? And I speak to this person, or I speak to that person, this entity, or that, and they get this from what they think is the Akashic records, which it might very well be, but now, it's kind of like, well, but they were not right. They're falsified records that manipulated things. And Kim said that as the Artemis agreement that expired July 5th, so that had to do with the Akashic records as well. As that expired, that people were describing experiences like, like they're doing the dishes, but at the same time they see themselves reading a book, right? And they start having dreams where they're married to someone different in an entirely different life, right? And they're basically getting these plugs of remnants of memories, I guess, from the Akashic records. But also remember, there's 10,378 different timelines that were created that we simultaneously existed on. So there's different memories from those too, right? So messing with our memories is obviously very important to manipulating and controlling who we are.
So wait, they're saying that all of that's going to come back? Like all of it's just going to come back at once? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think it'll come back at once. I mean, Kim didn't go into be more specific, but she did say that people will start to remember.
Mm-hmm. I think you will remember the things that you need. Like as you need them, the memory will be there, if that makes any sense. Like,
okay. Yeah, no, I think that makes more sense, actually. That makes it a little more easy to say, okay, that makes, because, if everybody suddenly remembered everything that ever happened to them in every lifetime, that's the kind of thing. Well, you're right. Like, I guess that rush would probably be too much for.
Well, you got to remember what happened, like back in January with us. How suddenly it felt like, you can probably explain it, because this is how I kind of took it when she said it, that the memories would just come back when we need them and if we need them and if they help us, for whatever journey you're on. So when in January we had
our dog just started barking. It is the weirdest thing. Like today.
He's talking. He wants to go for a walk. So like back in January, we just needed little things and it just came to us and we're like, wait, I didn't know that before. I've seen this before, but I got another piece to it. So, you had that experience as well. So I think whenever you need, I'm so sorry, Zasha. I think whenever you need them, it would just be put there. And then you'll just know, oh, I need to do this now. Because I think that's what it is. It gives us life experiences. Haven't we just come back over and over and over again? Again, I don't know if this is true or not, but haven't we come back over and over again to complete, like you have unfinished business or to complete something, if I'm not mistaken? Correct me if I'm wrong.
So I think about that a lot. I do have, and now I'm definitely questioning a lot of things, right? There are certain things that I've been very clear on, like my personal mission and purpose, right? And for a long time, where I was crystal clear on going down this path because my life was completely different. And I kind of just one day was like, jump. And I'm here. And it seemed like it happened overnight. Right. And I was like, this is what I have to do. Right. I like this is my calling in life. I am supposed to gather the people together from around the world who came here to change the world. And I've been focused on doing that for a long time. Right. And there's been quite a few obstacles, and we've had a lot of success doing that. Right, we pulled together people from all over the world, inventors, and Imagineers, and just incredible leaders, and all walks of life. And we've had lots of people fall away, and many other things as well. Right, that doesn't negate the mission. It's not like I mean, like all those things happen. It doesn't negate how you feel because when God kind of puts you and tells you, look, you got to go do this. It's like as you're getting dirt kicked in your face, you're kind of like looking at God, like, you sure? I mean, this is the right way to go, right? But it's like, well, like God's the one telling you, what are you going to do, right? So, so I felt that way for a long time. So, but I recognize that as a very clear, direct connection with Source telling me what I need to do, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Look, I think having direct current for me and what I'm experiencing is that whenever like, it just feels like boom, I just know what I have to do. Or it's like a little whisper. Like, this is what I've been like saying to you. I'm like, wait, no, they're going to respond this way, or this is going to happen this way because just calm down, be prepared. They're going to do this right now. Or I don't know. We've had so many to say that I'm like, it just felt like someone was talking, and then when you just knew, and then you had those experiences as well.
you see what she's doing
You,
here? She's scary accurate with this stuff, and she'll defer to me, right? Because she gets shy. Okay. Yes, that's what
no,
happens. That's what happens. So yes, I can talk about that, sure.
thank you. Like, you can talk about it too. Like, because we've been talking about these, going, holy moly, come on, there's got to be other people feeling this too. And I think that's where it's, yeah,
Well, the direct current right now, this is something I encourage everyone to put to the test, right?
yes,
Kim talks about this, and I'm telling you, every time I hear her talk about it, she goes, "This is what you can do with direct current. You have no idea how powerful you are, right?" These things are. I agree. I felt that way for a long time. That you have no idea how powerful you are. Put it to the test.
yeah.
Set an impossible vision in your mind of exactly.
See, that's the problem. See, that's the thing. Impossible. It's not impossible. Everything is possible. Like, that's just how I believe. Like, that is what I believe. That's my reality.
Okay,
Everything is possible. Sorry, Mr. Al.
yes, everything is possible. The point is, we all people word please too much. I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't care what anybody says. We get to define what words mean. We define them.
Yeah.
Words don't define us. We define words, right? I'll give you an example. People all have names, right? Now, your name can mean a million different things if you look it up in the dictionary. And I always make it a point to ask people, what does your name mean? Now, the word name means character and reputation. But that moniker doesn't mean anything until you put your life experience behind it. That's why you can say certain names and they immediately have different meaning than the definition of the word. What gives them meaning is the testimony and the life, the walk and that life behind the name. Words are the same way. So when I'm saying impossible, I'm trying to define a specific state of being that happens in people's minds when they're not willing to dare to dream that something can happen to them. And because of that, it's impossible because in their mind, it's not possible. Or maybe luck of the draw, all these different things. But what they don't think is, I can make it happen. So when you take something that you previously thought was impossible and you set that as your mark and your goal, you're now doing exactly what you just said. You're now saying nothing's impossible. Right now, nothing's impossible is a big generic statement that means absolutely nothing because, okay, nothing's impossible, but how many people live and feel that way about themselves? How many people actually feel that way in their heart of hearts? I can't do anything, right? Because people often will think of things they want to do and immediately dismiss it, right? But when you start to look at things and start to say, I've always wanted to do this, but I've never put any energy into it. I've never put any time to prepare. I've never, done the work behind it. I've never done anything to actually do it, but I'd love to do it. Like I learned how to play the bass when I was 30, right?
Yeah.
I always wanted to play an instrument, but I never put any effort into doing it. I never tried to play an instrument. But when I was 30, we started a band and we didn't have a bass player. So I learned how to play for that. That was something in my mind I just didn't have the talent to do. I didn't have the ability to do, right? But just by putting in the time, I took something that was impossible to me and made it possible, right? Now, that's something we do all the time. That's something little. But imagine all the other things that we have access to. And this is what I want to challenge people with. So this is what my point in saying, right? Yes, everything's possible. But the biggest challenge, in my opinion, how do we get people to see exactly what you just said? How do we get people to go from anything's possible and what are you driven to do? Like you're here to change the world, right? Like you're here to change the world. I talk to you about this every single day. Every single day. And when I'm having a dark day, you'll still be like, we are here to change the world. Right. She is not putting up with that. Right. So to get to that state for other people or to get people to tap into what is their purpose,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's where we're at. How do we get people to tap into what is your purpose? Share
Well,
it, everybody.
I think there's a process to it. Like we have the ability now to have direct current, so it's a flow. However, this is how I've been seeing it as. It's like you've got now direct current with source. Source is at 100, and right now let's just say you're at 50. Source can only give you 50. So, because it's an equal exchange, that's just, it's an equal exchange. So 50-50. And so as you start to raise your frequency, you'll be able to match that frequency of source, or your creator. But to get to that point, it comes with a lot of things that you either need to integrate, heal, see, and go through it. Like we had a lot of truths come out it's been about 3 weeks full on that I'm like, okay, this is it. It's got to be, this is it. There's nothing else left. We're good. And then we hear a little sound saying, nope, you need to now heal this, or you need to look into this. Are you being a victim? Are you hiding? My recent one was the hiding part. It's like, I'm not, I wasn't ready to completely talk about these things because I was like, these things that are occurring right now are a little bit crazy. And so when you're coming on this, I'm like, oh God, I now have to be bare and honest and truthful and show who I truly am. How do I do that without feeling like I'm going like, this is crazy? Is that making sense, Mr. Al? Like, because we've experienced so many things going on with healing. And just up to recently, it was like, oh, I'm stopping myself from doing this. Ultimately, we're here to be happy, right? Like all our aim goal is to be happy, find love. We all want to see a better world. We want to see a better earth. Sorry, I should say. We're all here for that. So I'm like, okay, that's where I want to go. And that's how I asked. Like I started asking, I want this to start. So I need it to start now because, we've got a lot of, like, I feel like we're on the on the sidelines. We were talking about this. I felt like I was on the sidelines going, what do you need? What do you need from us? Because if I'm hearing Kim and Kim is saying, it's up to you guys now, like you have it there, pull it down. So I just started digging and finding out and just really hearing and trusting myself. That's the other thing. What works for me isn't going to work for you. And that has happened, and
Well, it
Leela.
could. It could.
Well, yes,
It
it
could,
could.
but it doesn't necessarily mean it will, is what you're saying, right?
No, well, no, that's not exactly right. No, because you can take what I tell you, and which you do, but you will modify it your own way because you just know, like, there's many things that I've helped you with, but you'll grab it, modify it, and then heal yourself with it. But now,
Okay, but I'm saying you're talking to a multitude of people, right? So, how many people see this? What works for you might work for someone, but it
of
doesn't mean
course,
it has to. In other words, there's not an exact recipe or
no,
procedure to do anything to heal, to access source, to connect
that's
with your
right.
higher self. There's not an exact recipe, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because it could even happen that you don't even, you know what, when source is like, here, it's time. You probably, maybe you weren't even meditating or nothing, you weren't being all guru. It just happened. And so I think that's what it is just expecting that I am divine light. Divine light runs through me. It's your intention. So whatever it is, if it's to heal, if it's to connect with divine, whatever it is, if it's finances, everything's frequency, everything is energy. That's what we're learning. That it's not just Kim. It's everyone's not only heard it before, people are experiencing it, and that's what excites me. Is that I'm now speaking to other people, and I'm like, hey, are you feeling, a lot of energy coming your way? People are starting to feel it. Now, some people could be getting scared with the energy. That's true. I feel like that's really scary because sometimes, like, I'm like, oh, the first time I actually heard it so clear, I was like, who are you?
Hmm.
So, it is a little bit scary, but I just feel like, in my opinion, it could happen at any time, but you've got to, like she was talking about rewiring your mind, like, I call it reprogramming the mind, but it's, people don't like that word, so rewiring the mind. I feel like you have to do that. Like, we've been doing so much healings that ended up, a story, let's just say that hurt, or a trigger that came up from us, we'll dig and figure it out and go, how do we integrate it? Therefore, once we did, we were like, oh, it actually was for my benefit, and you're actually able to see things more clearer. That then God will go, okay, I'm gonna give you a little bit more, and I'm gonna give you a little bit more, and then by the time you're like, oh, I'm happy. What's my purpose? This is what I needed to, and it would just come, it would just flow, because right now, what we have never had before is an absolute direct current with your creator, whoever it is, but also flow. You know how we were see Kim actually showed it, but it's that flow. That's just going in circles. Holy moly! Like, that's why I'm like, now that is incredible. The energy of that just coming right through us. We have no other option but to be successful, to be happy, to see things with clarity. No one's manipulating our minds, our energy. Like, well, there's stuff, but you now have the tools, the wisdom, the knowledge to protect yourself. And you just know. Like yesterday when we were just projecting it out, and it was like, oh, this is what you do. It's as if you see it, and it just happens. I don't know if I'm caught off topic. Sorry.
No. I think you're right on topic. I mean, so this is a profound experience that in reality, I can confidently say that no one has ever had before. And a lot of people are probably saying, like, oh, well, I've had this experience. I'm not trying to take away from anything anyone's gone through. What I'm saying is, you now have access to energy directly from source unencumbered. Now, this is what Kim talked about when she talked about bringing money in. She talked about bringing in unencumbered money directly to your person. And she took the time to say, she talked about divine light source energy that you call money and bringing it in directly to your person. Now, think about this, in those terms. You're bringing in, you're drawing in this direct source energy. Now, what used to happen? This was one of the profound things that Kim talked about the other day. The way that the system worked is you had the alpha and the omega, and they had a relationship. So what would happen is alpha would bring in this divine light source energy, right? Pure life force energy. And it would go through a transmutation process through the omega system so you have life force on one side, that's a positive thing. Then you have the omega system. So what would it do? It would create credits, which are debts, right? So all of these notes that we use, right? The M1 level. Now the M, this was another mind-blowing thing, is what we thought was money one. The M stood for Marduk, right? So this is the M1 level, and this was dark energy because he controlled the flow of currency. He was the Lord of the sea, talking about the current sea, right? The currency, the flow of money, energy, and all of our, all these different things that are used as currency, so to speak. So what would happen is the omega system, because it was the counterbalance, right, of this light dark system, would basically have credits or debts. So every dollar, everything in their system was based on debt. So they would bring money. It's why I remember doing this in the beginning with Kim. We would try to bring money in, and they would want to set up a debt instrument. And Kim would explain, look, we don't have to bring in a debt instrument. I'm giving you straight cash, right? I'm giving you straight money. She'd even say, not only am I going to bring in money, I'll bring in $1 million that we're going to put in this account. And then we'll bring in another $1 million to the bank that the bank can use to trade and create value and loan out for the whole time that money's in the bank. That's a great system, but they couldn't understand it. They'd be like, no, I need to create a debt instrument, because what they thought was the only way to have money and have credits and be profitable was through darkness or debt, right? So what they're currently were trying to do, right now, this is their latest scheme, was to basically make all of us enslaved to debt. Again, and we've all been enslaved to debt anyways. But the new light system doesn't require that. The new light system is real money that is real currency directly from source, transmuted from the ninth dimension, ninth plane existence of source, all the way down through the 81 different layers, down to our person as tangible, usable currency. And bringing that money from source to us is kind of the final blow to the cabal. So a lot of this effort is realizing that's our right, right? Kim talked about her birthright today. I thought, well, isn't it our birthright too? Isn't it our? Now, when you start to look at things, well, that's my birthright too, right? To bring this money into my person, right? Because it's not money. Really, money's just energy. But we're bringing that divine light source energy into this reality where we currently are to use as currency. Now, that's my take on what Kim is saying. Now, she's not giving instructions or telling people to do that necessarily. But my take on it is that's where we're at. I mean, think about it. We're getting our memories back. Mm-hmm. We're getting our power back. What do we do with that power now that we have it? Right? Mm-hmm. How do we use it to sculpt and create a better world? And I think that is the really most profound moment in human history that we've ever had. It just seems like day by day by day. Now, what I'm looking for, though, is that has to have a collective response that results in miraculous outcomes. What should be happening, what we not even should be, what I believe is happening, and it's now time for us to take responsibility for, is how do we turn this into miraculous things, right? Think about when Jesus was on earth, right? Jesus told the disciples, "Greater things than these shall you do, shall ye do." In other words, the things I'm doing, you wait till you see what you can do, right? You're going to do better things than this. But in the meantime, he's walking around healing the blind, the crippled, like he's making people that never walked walk. He's feeding thousands of people with, he's got 5 fish and a loaf of bread, and he feeds 5,000 people and just multiplies it, right? Now, whether you believe that story or not about the Messiah, you know, who cares? The principle of the story is still it's symbolic, if nothing else, right? There's a symbolism there that of making the impossible possible, right? Turning water into wine, you know, uh, all these incredible things, that raising the dead, right? Having demonstrating that it's not that we are life. And he said, "You're going to do greater things than these." Right. So imagine the disciples. I always think about this like, are we doing greater things than that? Like, are we doing greater things than raising someone from the dead? Overcoming death? Are we doing things greater than, feeding the masses? Are we doing something greater than healing people? And I think we should be asking ourselves, well, how do I do that? And I mean that on a real level, right?
Yeah,
And it starts with ourselves, right? So,
100%. Yeah.
so what do you think about that? How do we kick that off? Amassing. Kim said this, that in 2024, people will be walking out of the death wards and walking out of the hospital.
Mm,
Now, that to me, that is my drive, to be able to just heal people, or just for people to suddenly wake up and heal themselves, right? Like this disease has no power over me. This malady has no power over me. This ailment, this disfigurement, this crutch that's put me in this state where I can't move, I can't talk, I can't walk, I can't breathe. It has no power over me. Oh my
yeah.
God. To move with that kind of authority where this body does what you say,
Yeah.
right? Your body didn't betray you. You just have to tell your body what to do. And I'll tell you, I'm putting that to practice every day. I really am trying.
I think that's what we were always meant to do. And now we just, you'll just know how to do it. That works for you. It will just happen. You just have to trust yourself. When everyone else is telling you, whatever, you have to do this, don't listen to them. If it doesn't feel right, trust yourself. I feel like that's the biggest one, is trusting yourself and and believing like I'm healed, knowing it, commanding it. Yeah, I feel like that's so important, by saying I am healed, I am doing my purpose, and everything just fall in line. I just, you have to will it to be, I guess you could say. Like,
Will it to be. Now, I love that thought. I love that thought. Are you hiding now, or do you want to
no,
communicate?
I can't. It keeps playing. Like,
Oh, all right. Yeah, we made all these great slides, and now we can't get them to go away. And
I don't know what's going on, so hang on. It's
wow,
definitely can't have that one.
M equals Marduk. Yeah, that's what the M1 was in the credits.
Ugh.
That's what I was just talking about. This would have been perfect timing a minute ago, right?
Okay, there we go. Thank you. uh, yeah, I can't. I'm on, I guess.
It's fine. So, what do you think? So, you're talking about willing it to be.
Yeah.
So, I love this. This is my, I started this journey, and my first download I ever got, the first time I ever knew I got something from God, was the Green Lantern business theory. All right. Now, the Green Lantern business theory is what I first created. Now, and what I was doing is I set up a little business for me and my sons, because they were like 7 years old, and I wanted to build stuff with them. So what I did was I was going to make functional furniture, because I'm an artist, right? So I'm a sculptor. So we were making functional furniture, and I was collaging comic books into it. So I included them and I had them collage the comic books into this furniture, right? It's really cool stuff, actually. We got it on a magazine and everything. So anyway, so I had them. So my research with my sons, right, which has been a lifetime of bonding with my sons through this, is we would watch all these comic book, like we would read comic books and watch, different comic book things, right? And I would bond with them over this. And my favorite was the Green Lantern, right? And the moment in the Green Lantern is like one of the cartoon shows says the Green Lantern is the green light of will, the first cause of all creation, the ability to will something into existence that only exists in your mind, right? And the arch nemesis of will of the Green Lantern is the Yellow Lantern, which is fear, right? And fear is almost as powerful as will. You can control, and what I realized at that time is every business and everything in this world runs on fear, right? Everything here runs on fear because you have to make the numbers. You have to sell a product. You have to take care of your family. You have to do this. You have to eat that. You have to work this job. You have to. Because if you don't, what's going to happen? Who's going to, it's fear, fear, fear. That's the arch nemesis to will. So what I realize is if you can get enough people together around a common will, where that's what the life force movement is. It's the Green Lantern theory expressed. Bringing people together, because if you bring people together around, I believe in what I'm doing, so much so that I have a common will with you. So when my will and your will is the same, we'll work for free. Now, we don't want to, but we will. It's so powerful that you'll do that, right? That's how powerful. And I've watched things just come into existence out of nowhere. I know this for a fact. I know that as I need someone for something, they just show up.
Yeah.
They just show up. I don't know. People with specific skill sets, like I need a website. I need a design for this. I need somebody who's an expert in language. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, guess what? I'm that. This random person will call me up and say, and just happen to hear our show that day. I've watched that happen over and over and over again. So we collectively can will anything into existence. And Kim talked about this. She talked about three. She goes, if you have three people doing the same thing,
Yeah.
they can't stop it. But if you have seven, so we need just seven people with the same will to do anything, right? I feel like that was very specific. Like three people can't stop us. Seven people was even better, right?
Yeah.
So that's all it takes. Seven people focused on the same outcome and the same result.
Mhm.
And we can just will anything to existence, right?
Pardon?
And we can just will anything into existence.
Right.
I just mumbled all my words together. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I couldn't hear it. Sorry. So I need you to repeat it. It's exciting. It's like really, really exciting because it's like, I feel like it's like source is your investor. What? When you think of it that way, one, he's your investor. Number two, he's your boss. All right, what do you need me to do? Show me, I'm here, let's get it done. That's what I've been doing. And I'm like, okay, you want me to do this? Not a problem, let's go. And I'm just trusting. I'm just trusting whatever I need to do. And I feel like once you do that, you end up having fun as well. I'm learning stuff about myself that I'm like, oh, is a different quality that I had that you forced upon me that was really good for me, that I really didn't want to do, but now I am doing it. So this is so exciting. And I'm just really trying to make everything positive. That's how I feel like I'm talking to myself 24/7. It's like, just keep that frequency there. We are there. Just keep it, hold it, believe it, pull it into you. Anything is possible. Everything is possible. We're the only ones putting the limits there because now nothing's in our way. And it does sound like it's cuckoo lala, but I'm like, why not try it? just try it. And if it doesn't work, then it didn't work. But if you feel better, it's like, oh, okay, let's do this. And you're going to want to manifest everything. You're going to see that you are a dreamer. Like I was talking to someone, and I won't say their name, but I was talking to someone and they were talking about their projects. And I'm like, think big, touch the stars and beyond. Like, Source is your investor. So when you're looking at projects, when you're looking at how to do things, hey, you're going to have to give me the tools, the knowledge, the wisdom, the resources to get this job done because you are my boss. You know, I'm a little bit more like, you do as I tell you. You know, so and everyone's going to have different experiences. But I feel like this is exciting. It's I'm excited. I don't know. I just think it's going to be magical. Like I see so much change coming in. Actually, I feel so much change here. I think we're unstoppable already. And I think they're really scared because as all these people are waking up, they're getting a little bit cocky. And they're like, oh, I know how to protect myself. Oh, I know how to do this. Oh, I know how to do that. And everyone's different. So imagine if you're awakening to your magical powers, that's completely different to my magical powers and completely different to your magical powers. And then we come together. Well, my mom always says it's like Shazam. And I'm like, Shazam. So that's how I see it. I'm like, because other people are going to have other things. And if you just all of these kind of like touch together, how can we not change the world like that? Because our energy is just expanding so wide, so far that everyone else is just going to be like, I want to take what that person's taking. She's happy, she's this, she's like, all the, whatever it is, everything's going her way. Like, I've just seen that by changing your mindset and going deep and there's the door. It's going to look black. It's going to be like, I don't want to open that door and get me out of here. I don't like it. And you're going to want to, it's going to feel great or not. It's just that my experience was, I don't want to look at it. Open that door because it might not be that scary. And then you'll just have the answers and then the solution as well, and then everything will just start falling into place, and then you're like, oh, and then the next day you'll get another piece, and the next day you'll get another piece, and do tests, get excited about this, going, okay, Source, I'm here, what do I need to do? Show me, help me, guide me. Just ask. Your intention is everything. It doesn't matter if you just started, if you've been doing this for 1,000 years, okay, 30 years. It doesn't matter. Just your intention. That's it. It's just your intention is to X, whatever you want. And I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but that's just how I see it.
No. I think I would also say this. I think this is really important. Some things that are right and good for you don't always feel good at first. They don't. When you go work out really hard, you're tearing your muscles down, right? And where you are really getting the benefit is when your muscles recover. But in the time that you're sitting there sore and feeling weak and it's hard to walk because you worked legs so hard, or in that time it hurts. But here's the amazing, miraculous thing about your body that you can always, I'm telling you, you can 100% of the time, you can go back to your body and you can learn something about God and about who you are. Because I'm telling you, if you know how the body works, you will stop putting limitations on what your body can do. You'll start saying, wait, I can do this. And the more you test it, you'll see, oh, wait, I can do this. Oh, I can. Kim actually talked about redirecting the adrenaline in her body to lift 3 and 4 times more. That is physically impossible. Or at least that's what we thought, right? That would be something that we thought was impossible, to go in one day to lift 3 or 4 times more than what you can. It wouldn't be possible, but she did it. I know others who've done it. So in other words, you can tap into that energy right within yourself, in your own chemical makeup, redirect and just challenge your own body and say, I need this to do this right now. I've watched people drop 15 pounds overnight. I've watched people completely change the structure and function of their body, their strength, even the way they look, just by willing it to happen. Now, that's possible. That is really possible. You can do that. So when you start to look at your body and say, what is possible with my body? Test it on your body. Test it in the sense of believe you can do that. She talked about how our ability to regenerate our cells will improve rapidly because we'll start to have memories of who we really are. And we start to remember who we really are. We're like, wait, I'm an eternal being. I'm a celestial being. I am so much more than what I thought I was. I'm just here in this role right now. Let me express the fullness of what I am. And start to ask yourself, what does that mean? And the universe has to answer, right? And you
Yeah.
tell me, Lauda tells me this all the time. This is what I accept as my reality. It's a frequency I am. The universe has to. It's obligated to respond because it's a law. The
Yeah.
law of vibration dictates. Laws cannot be broken, by the way. That doesn't mean ordinances and policies set up by the government. Laws cannot be broken. They're absolute. So the law of vibration, if you are vibrating at a certain frequency, inevitably you attract more things of that frequency. You can't help it. And it's much bigger than you are. So if you're thinking small, if you're expecting small, well, of course, that's what you're getting is small things. But when you start to think big, look big, you start to consider how much power are in your words and your being and everything you are, you will naturally emanate that. And what do you think happens? People respond. Whether you've done anything with it or not, they'll start to vibrate at your frequency. That's what happens. Now, everything in the universe vibrates the same way. You start to
Or
feel like
follow it.
what's that?
They either vibe or they'll follow it. You know.
Yeah. Well, not just people, but even your own body. You start to look at yourself and consider every day, I am in the best shape of my life.
Yeah.
I feel amazing. I feel incredible. I see perfectly. I have corrected, but this is true. I have corrected my vision. I've always had 20/10 vision my whole life. I've always had very good vision. And a few years ago, I needed reading glasses so bad I couldn't read anything. I mean, like, and the eye doctor told me, like, you need reading glasses, and I couldn't keep the glasses on my face, so I just sun gazed and grounded for like 2 months and corrected my vision, and I just believed it could happen. And from
Yeah.
time to time, it slips back in, and I just do it again. Right now, in reality, what I need to do is focus my frequency on maintaining optimal vision, right? Like as part of like I expect that I can see everything and anything, right? Exactly the way it is, And the more we expect and expect great things from ourselves, what do you think has to happen? Yeah. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that direct current and using that direct current to completely rejuvenate and restore our bodies and our whole planet. That's where we're at.
Yes. That's what's so exciting about this. I'm like, I'm ready. And I'm sure everyone else is too. So, Mr. Al, we are coming down to almost, an hour and a half. Are we doing a after show?
Uh, yes.
We have to say if we're going to do an after show or
Anybody
not.
wants to do a Q&A after, and that'll be posted in our Telegram chats. And with that being said, Lauda, thank you so much for being here and everybody who hung out with us a little bit. And stay tuned. My name is Stefan Rao. This is the Life Force Network and Life Force Movement. So let's go change the world.